May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock, my Redeemer. Amen. Did you know, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you, did you know that there are between 100 and 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy? And there are more than 100 billion galaxies in the universe, maybe as many as 500 billion. John, that's a big number.
That's a bunch.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. If you multiply stars by galaxies at the low end, you get 10 billion stars, or 10 sextillion stars in the universe. A 1 followed by 22 zeros. And at the high end, it's 200 sextillion. There are more galaxies than there are grains of sand on the earth. I won't go into the math on the grains of sand, how they did that, you know. Grain of sand's about, what, 0.5 millimeter across, and you got so many on the center, now, whatever it is. Some guy did all that stuff and came up with the fact that, yeah, there are more stars and galaxies than there are grains of sand on the earth. That's big. That's big. We didn't know that until we got Hubble and started looking at the beginning of space and time, beginning of the universe, and able to see that. And scientists are positing a Big Bang that brought it all about. That's a big idea. That's a big idea. John also had a very big idea, and that's the pre-existent Christ. It's not mentioned in the other Gospels. Paul preached about it in Ephesus, and later John wrote about it in his Gospel. That's a big idea, that there is a Christ, the Word, Logos, not Sophia, but Logos. God spoke the Word, and it came into existence. Earth came into existence. God spoke the Word, and our galaxy came into existence. God speaks the Word, and more galaxies come into existence. And what is the crowning achievement of God's creation? You, me. Isn't that something? The crowning achievement of all that God created and continues to create, because it continues to expand. Can you wrap your mind around that? It is infinite, what is out there. Infinite. And that is of God. That's God's big idea. But the biggest idea is you and me. The crown jewels of creation. That is a humbling thought. Beyond comprehension. Both of them, in my mind. Beyond comprehension. The God who created all of that created us for companionship, and did so through the power of Christ, and continues to do so, bringing us in as children, adopted into God and into God's family. That's Paul's big idea. Paul had a couple of them. When Paul talks about the mystery of faith, you read about it in Ephesians. When he talks about the mystery of faith, what is he talking about? One of the mysteries that got his attention, his big idea, was that, this gospel isn't just for Jews, it's for Gentiles too. And then Galatians, he continues to say, there is no Jew or Gentile, there's no male or female, there's no slave or free. And he talks about, we also read about, a resurrection, all in one. We continue to put up walls of separation between each other that God never, it seems to me like never intended. That makes sense? And we continue to do it through denominationalism, through labeling of people as liberal or conservative and not conservative enough, too far off the other end, Republicans, Democrats. Jesus' big ideas, and maybe you can help me with this. What are some of Jesus' big ideas?
Love your enemy.
Love your enemy. Love your enemy. That is tough. That is a big idea. Walls go down. Fences get moved. That is a big idea. Love your enemy. Pray for those who persecute you. Love your neighbor as you would yourself. Big ideas.
Bigger than that. is having your enemies love you.
Yeah, I guess. I suppose. But we're not to love them if they love us in return. We love them anyway. And that's hard. That's hard. Easier said than done, isn't it? How are we doing with those big ideas? How did we do with them in 2015? How are we going to do with them in 2016? What is your big idea? It's a new year. What is your big idea? How are you going to be known? How will God know you in your name? John, big idea. Paul, big idea.
God already knows each and every one of us.
You know, in Luke, we're told that, talking about being known by God, Jesus says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 cents? Yet not one of them is forgotten before God. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered." Some are in declining number, but they're all numbered. "Do not fear. You are more valuable than many sparrows." Average young adult has about 100,000 hairs on their head. And people at that time, that would be a big deal. That's a big number. It isn't 10 to the 22nd big, but that's big. Is your understanding of the universe keeping up? As a Christian, are you still stuck in first century science? Or are you enthralled and enlivened when you hear that the universe is just huge and expanding, it's beyond what we can even know? And is your God's keeping up with it? You're not going to outpace God, but are you keeping up with that? Are you keeping up with your understanding? Are you keeping up with what's out there? And I would say as Christians, we probably are not. And we have let that discussion be taken over by others, which is too bad. We have a lot to offer. It seems like what they're coming down to is relational. And we kind of understand that. As what's at the core of everything. It's relationship. Relationship with God. A God who desires to be in a relationship with us. A Christ who desires to help us be adopted radically into the family of God. You know, adoption in Roman times meant that father can do anything he wants to with his son. Now, sons, keep this in mind. This is the way it was. Oh, no. A father could sell his son into slavery. A father could have his son killed. If the son inherited any money from somewhere, got any gifts, that goes to the father first. That's the way Roman law worked. You are totally subjected to the father. Now, when Paul says we're adopted as children of God, in his mind, it isn't this easy process that you got to go through. It's a very involved process where you got to do this 3 times before a judge, and then the judge will say, "Well, are you willing to sell your son?" The father sells his son, and then he buys him back, he ransoms him back, and then he sells his son, and he ransoms him back again, and finally they go through this, okay, now you're the son of this other person, this other man. Any debts that you incurred are forgiven. It is radical. When you come into that new family, you are washed clean. You start over anew, brand new. And this time, in this family, we're in the hands of a God that loves us and wants for us the best, the finest wheat, as John read in the song, the best gifts. Amazing. Amazing. Those are big ideas. And what's yours? Are you going to be in the company of fence builders or fence movers? During World War I, I've told this story before a little bit differently. I want to say it again, because there's some of you that are new and hadn't heard it, and I just love telling it. So I'm going to tell it again. World War I, a Protestant chaplain with the American troops in Italy became a friend of a local Roman Catholic priest. In time, the chaplain, who moved on with his unit, was killed. The priest heard of his death and asked military authorities if the chaplain could be buried in his church's cemetery beside the church. Permission was granted, but the priest ran into a problem with his own Catholic Church authorities. They were sympathetic, but they said they could not approve the burial of a non-Catholic in a Catholic cemetery. I guess the dirt knows or something. I don't know. Do it. So the priest buried his friend just outside the cemetery fence. Years later, a war veteran who knew what had happened returned to Italy and visited the old priest. The first thing he did was ask to see the chaplain's, his friend's grave. To his surprise, he found the grave inside the fence. "Ah," he said, "I see you got permission to move the body." "No," said the priest. "They told me where I couldn't bury the body, but nobody ever told me I couldn't move the fence." I love it. I love it. Are we a company of fence builders or fence movers? When we decide who's in and who's out of the fellowship, we're building a fence. We're building a barrier. We do that gay, straight, rich, poor, black, white, unwashed and washed, saved and unsaved, right? So you're in, you're out. What is your big idea? What is your big idea? What are you going to do about it in your life? Who are you fencing out? Who do you need to make amends with and move that fence? This is the first Sunday of the year. This is a good thing. Well, of the calendar year. The first Sunday of the Christian year was that. But we'll go with the calendar this time. You get an opportunity here at the table to take in the risen Christ. You have the opportunity to be adopted, grafted into the family. Well, you've had that opportunity. Hopefully now you can cement it and build upon it for the year ahead. For what's ever ahead. What is your big idea? Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge. Don't you love it? Imagination is more important than knowledge. John, boy, he sparked the imagination when he said, the Word was in the beginning with God. What are you talking about? Expand your mind and understand that. Paul said, the gospel isn't just, there's Christ hidden in God and hidden within the Christ, are you and I. What is the mystery? The Christ is for all. And that continues to be a mystery. Have we fully understood that to the point where we can go line upon line, precept upon precept, and build up a new understanding of God? God's already out there. God is beyond our imaginings. I just don't think we imagine big enough. What is it that you are called to do? What is it you're going to be called to do this year? What is it you're called to do for the glory of the kingdom? Let's start out the year doing that stuff. Let us be the body of Christ, undivided. Christ is the head. Let's figure out ways we can work with other churches. That's a good way to start. We're all in this together. We focus on distinctives and what makes us unique, and that's divide and conquer tactics. That's as old as Philip of Macedon who came up with that. Divide and conquer, we're going to do that. That's Satan working its way. Let's make sure we have this division, this bifurcation. There's two ways to go. There's this way to look at it and that way to look at it. We always get this dualism set up, and Paul spoke against that. Said, no, there's no dualism. You've set that up. You've set that up. Matter is redeemed. I talked about this last week. Matter is redeemed. There is no dualism. It's one. We're all part of each other. We're all part of God. We're grafted into the family. Even those crazy cousins you don't like. They're all in there. Redeemed, blessed, signed, sealed, and delivered. Like the old song says. You have been marked as a child of God. You have been loved into a new family. What are you going to do about it? What is your big idea?